All right, it's 8:45, we'll call the meeting to order, begin with the pledge. Auditor McNichol, will you lead us today?
I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, good morning, everyone. Apologize for my voice, I feel fine, I just have no voice. First item on the agenda is to approve our agenda. Motion by Weeks, second by Gage to approve the agenda. All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carries. Next up, we've got second reading, possible adoption of rezone ordinances 213 and 214.
We'll do ordinance 213. The proposed ordinance is applicant Neil Bellica looking to go from agricultural preservation district to highway commercial district. Legal address is proposed outlot 1, outlot 2, B and B outlots in the northeast quarter of section 23, T123 north, R63 west of the 5th PM.
Move it.
So, motion by Weiss, second by Feldheim. Anyone here to speak to this ordinance? Seeing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carries.
We'll do ordinance 214. This is also a rezone request. Applicant Roger Spanier looking to go from agricultural preservation district to mini ag. The legal address is Spanier Outlot 1 in the northwest quarter of section 25, T123 north, R60 west of the 5th PM.
I'll move it.
Second.
Motion by Fikert, second by Weiss. Is there anyone here to speak to this ordinance? Seeing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carries. I think we're on track to go to item number 3, the first reading, Title IV amendments.
These were some changes to our Title IV zoning ordinance that came through the Planning and Zoning Board. I don't know if somebody, the Commissioner Liaison or Scott, if you wanted to present a little about it.
Yep. These are ordinances that were brought before the Planning Commission, February 15th meeting. And then it went through approval through the council or commission, and then the publishing, and then this would be first reading. So we have some changes in the agriculture, mini ag, heavy industrial, and light industrial, and then one portion in the definition. You guys have a copy of them?
Yeah.
Copy packet,
Okay.
yes, and then you haven't mailed them out also, so.
Yep.
Anyone from the Planning Commission care to speak to this at all? Any comments? Okay. Anyone in the audience have any comments on these proposed changes? Hearing and seeing none, I would entertain a motion, first reading.
Move it. Second.
Motion by Feldheim, second by Weiss. Do you have a comment, Mike?
I have one comment, and I've expressed my concern, and I just want it out there. The setback that was put in there of 1,500 feet, just want to caution that has the potential to be seen as a little arbitrary for the number. I asked what the justification was for it, and it was just like, well, it was kind of a range between things. And so usually I like to see things that have got, you know, a little more justification behind what it is specifically. So I don't have a problem with the number, but it's just how we get to those numbers for those purposes. Something that we need to be cognizant that we need to be using some sort of standard when we do those kind of things. So that's my only comment. I do support the amendments.
And there is a map that was attached showing the distances to some residential houses and stuff in the area. The 500-foot, 1,000-foot, 1,500-foot.
Yep, thank you for providing that.
Any other comments?
Does that seem to be somewhat of an industry standard? I mean, is that kind of a normal setback for
It is a wide range.
wide range? Okay.
I looked a lot of stuff up in the region and as far out as the East Coast regarding transmission pipelines and stuff.
Thank you.
Is that towards the lower end or the higher end, or what You said the wide range, is that more towards the lower end than?
The 500 to 1,500 foot was based on our locations and a proposed path, I guess, if you will,
Okay.
of talking to landowners that have been approached and so forth. And so we come up with a proposed pathway, and then that gave us something to compare distances and stuff with.
Okay, thank you. Any other comments? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carries.
Thanks for your work on that.
Thanks.
A lot of things to consider.
And it does also give some forgiveness, the way it's worded, that the zoning board does have some opportunities to lighten that up if, depends on what's presented.
Okay. Thank you. Next item on the agenda, Summit Carbon Solutions. Pipeline crossing through Brown County. Is there a representative here?
Morning.
Good morning, gentlemen.
Good morning.
How are you today?
Excellent, thank you.
Good.
Mr. Chair, Commissioners, can I
Yes.
jump in?
Absolutely.
Excellent, thank you. My name is Jay Bulk, I'm from Summit Carbon Solutions. I'm actually out of Bismarck, North Dakota. Joey's with me here today, and we'll get into introductions as we go on. I guess what we wanted to do today is really just give you guys just a very high overview of, I know you, well, let me ask this, are you guys familiar with the Summit Carbon pipeline and project that's being proposed?
Somewhat, I am.
Okay, and I do have a presentation I could give. Likely maybe what I'll do today is just give just a very brief overview, and then really I wanted to give an introduction and ask some really preliminary questions about contacts, who we should start engaging with the non-environmental permitting, encroachments, road crossings, zoning, those type of questions. So really, starting off with an introductory to Summit. So again, my name's Jay Volk. I'm actually Bismarck native. Lived up in North Dakota here my entire life. Been in the energy industry for the last 20 years and joined Summit here about 2 months ago. So I'll be based out of Bismarck and really working my way through North Dakota and South Dakota, working with commissions, working with counties, working with townships throughout the pipeline aspect, as well as more so on the sequestration side in North Dakota. So I'll leave you my contact when we come. But the pipeline project is really a 5-state project with North Dakota, South Dakota, Iowa, Nebraska, and Minnesota. And we're looking at collecting carbon from approximately, actually 31 ethanol plants as it stands today, at about 8.7 million tons per year. Collecting that, bringing it into a feeder line, and then bringing that up to North Dakota, just south of Beulah Hazen or northwest of Bismarck, to sequester that permanently. So that's the project in really what I would say in a nutshell, without getting too much detail at that part, but I would entertain questions as we go. But it's the largest carbon capture project that's proposed. It's not anything that's new. There's about 40 ethanol plants who are capturing carbon as we speak today. This is just accumulating multiple ones and bringing it to one spot. So technology is very proven to capture it, and this is just the transport of the product to North Dakota. And with that being said, one area that we're looking at trying to get ahead of as the permitting processes go on, and there is a state permit that's actually submitted to the PUC, and some meetings going on this week for those. But what we want to do is get out in front of the counties and just really understand what the permitting requirements would be as we're crossing roads, as we're getting encroachments, as we're getting utility easements, and multitude of other aspects as we're developing this project. And in Brown County, just to let you know, I do have a few maps with me today. Has about, I'm going to just say, call it 29 miles of pipeline. Oh, thank you. I'll take a couple this way as well. So multiple, and I can get into a little bit on the pipeline sizes as well, is what you'll see on there. There's a couple different pipelines labeled. As the project progresses and starts in the Iowa, Nebraska area, the main trunk line, as you could expect, would be a little bit smaller. as you start bringing ethanol plants on, the trunk size gets bigger and bigger on the main line, and ultimately, I believe, is 20 inches in South Dakota as a main line, and gets into a 24-inch line going through North Dakota as you expand out. Most of the lateral pipelines that are listed on there are anywhere from 4 inches to 8 inches, some up to 12, depending on how many ethanol plants would be coming in off of those laterals. So most of them in South Dakota, I believe, are 4 inches or 8 inches on those laterals. So that's the type of pipeline we're looking at putting in. Like I said, in Brown County, it would be roughly 30 miles, as this map illustrates today. So I guess, a couple of questions I would have for you, and then 100% same point asked me as well, is any particular contacts that we could make in your guys' county with planning and zoning, or who are the appropriate people, highway superintendents and others, that we should start engaging with to really understand Brown County's permitting processes, requirements, and so forth? So maybe I'll just start with that question.
Okay. Gentleman in the blue sweater there is Scott Bader. He's our planning and zoning director. He can get you his contact information. And our highway superintendent is standing here, Dirk Rogers. And he too will get you contact information.
216-3133, area code 605. Any crabby farmers listening out there, don't use that number, but you guys
Get redundant.
That'll ring right to me. I will, when we get your contact information, I'll send you an email or something with our address and office and all that stuff.
And another contact, excuse me, would be Scott Meints, our emergency management director here. Have him on your list.
I appreciate that, Commissioner, and thank you for bringing that up. And I will just say, as the project goes on and gets more mature, one of our aspects is to make sure we're meeting with emergency managers in the area, rural fire departments as well, and going through the whole emergency management side. So that'll be something I appreciate the contact on at this point as well. So definitely on our list as the project matures.
Scott oversees all the volunteer fire departments in the county, so he would be the best contact for that information.
You oversee them?
What did you say?
You oversee them?
Well, I don't
You
know.
have contact with them.
There you go.
Try to coordinate.
Mr. Commissioner, is there any just high level, and maybe I can just ask at a very high level questions. I don't want to put you guys in the details of this conversation today. It wasn't my intent, but I guess just from road boring standpoints, anything in that sense on county roads, are we looking, would it be boring?
Everything will be bored on the county system. Now, you have you're gonna run into something different in every county. The townships, and I know our townships, there's 44 townships, they're all organized, and they all control their own deal, okay? And I try really, really hard to leave that delineation there, because there's 44 townships, and if you're nice to one, you gotta be nice to all the other 43, so, that's my first thing I'll tell you, and I don't know if some of the township guys are in here, I know Dave, that's even gonna vary from township to township, the level. In some townships, that might be, you talk to one of the supervisors, he calls the other two, everybody's, and you go from there. Now, that's obviously specific to the road. So, that's all I'm telling you, don't call me about the townships.
That was what my...
Call the townships about the townships, I can get you a list of all of them if you need it, okay? Yep.
Thank you
Now,
very much.
that's the townships. County roads, you have to bore everything, whether it's gravel, paved, whatever it is, cow path, if it's a county jurisdiction, you have to bore it. I haven't seen a detailed map other than what they're looking at here. You, don't have, on your lateral going from the west ethanol plant, is that running in the state right away, or are you
No.
going a mile south and going down that section line?
Correct, they would not be in the right of way.
So in that scenario, you're only gonna intersect one county road, maybe two on that one. Your diagonal thing coming through the southwest there, that must be like the main or whatever, the 20-inch line?
Correct.
Wow, boring a 20-inch line's that's nuts. But, good luck.
It happens.
Yes, it is.
Down there, you're gonna have one, depending on where this thing crosses in here, you're gonna have one or two. So what I'm telling you is relative to the county stuff, you're only gonna intersect 4, 5, 6 locations on the county road as long as this doesn't deviate. Now, if you can find a way to swing her down here around this township and go into Falk and Spink and avoid us altogether, that would be even better. But in the meantime, there's stuff there to do, but it's not, we're not talking about 20 locations. It just spitballing quick, I think we're looking at 6 or 7.
I appreciate that as well, and thank you very much for the township, because that was really the second question I wanted to ask you, so thank you for pointing that out to the township jurisdiction.
Mr. Fiker.
Well, I guess I'm sitting here a little bit concerned and a little bit confused because the PUC hasn't approved this project. So while we sit here and talk about this, I mean, it's like you're getting information that can be hauled back to the PUC in their hearings as though we've approved it. And I guess I'm a little reluctant to we should probably be having this conversation after you get the PUC permit, not before. That's my feeling about it, so.
Go ahead, sir.
I appreciate the question, Commissioner, and just for clarification, my intent is not to be asking for any permissions today. So it is just really an introductory to us, for us to understand what the requirements are prior to just what you brought up, Mr. Commissioner. And we'll be definitely down here with you guys working as the project progresses, but we just wanted to make an introduction, start understanding what Brown County's requirements are once we get into these. So we have that as our backdrop as we continue the maturing the line in the process. So most definitely understood, and we'll be working with you guys as that progresses.
Dave?
I've got a question. I'm Dave North. I'm on the Planning and Zoning Board as well as a township official. What is your depth gonna be for these pipelines? And okay, you're gonna be going across the fields and whatever. There's also a concern of the wet water lines and whatever, and at our last meeting, one of the web officials was there. And how are you gonna go over theirs as well as what the depth's gonna be as you go through the fields and whatever?
Sure. Thank you for the question. So where we're starting our depth at is at 4 feet minimum from top of pipe. So 4 feet of cover. So PHMSA standards on the federal side is actually 3 feet. We moved it to 4, and I would say that's the shallowest we're gonna be. So there's gonna be numerous crossings, just like you brought up on water pipes, maybe drainages, and a lot of other scenarios in between. Borings are all gonna have different depths. So minimum is gonna be 4 feet. Areas that we have to go under or deeper, we're gonna adjust to a deeper standard at that point. So I guess a way of answering that differently, each scenario could be differently. Going straight across the field at 4 feet, anything else is gonna have to likely be deeper when we go across.
Well, that's why I'm asking the question, is because we've got a pretty good indication on what wet water's gonna require.
Yes.
And then also, as a farmer, how are you gonna address drain tile if these farmers have it?
I appreciate that question as well. So there's a couple aspects on that. Is what we did is Summit actually went out and hired Ellingson out of Minneapolis, and they're going to be the drain tile contractor. Part of the easement that'll be built in the easement is a lifetime warranty on the drain tile, which will be if a landowner has a certain contractor he's been using on his drain tile, Ellingson will oversee that contractor, or we would hire them specifically to do the work. So during the pre-planning stages, as best as we can, we would map that out. This is being worked out as they're trying to acquire easement, as well as any existing drain pipe, or I would say future drain pipe.
Well, I'm talking about existing.
Existing.
It's already there. The other ways, you can work around it. If the pipeline is already there, they can work around it. But I'm talking about existing stuff that's already there.
So we would go under it, and where we would cut through it, that's where we're gonna hire Ellingson for the life of the project, or the individual contractors to the landowner, the lifetime warranty where we actually do those modifications at. So we actually have that written into our easement language for the lifetime warranty of the drainage tile. And I can get that information, but great question. That actually came up really early in some of the Iowa and other South Dakota meetings as well, which was not in the easements initially, which has now been written into the easements. So And I can follow up with you and get more
Well,
specific information on that.
Personally, it doesn't affect me, 'cause I'm on this side up here, so, but still, the fact is, you're gonna run into that problem.
You bet.
And I don't think 4 foot to the top of the pipe is enough, especially because of the frost and everything else, personally. Because everything else we've got to put in the ground, whether it's water lines or whatever, we got to go down at least 6 foot so they don't freeze in the wintertime. So, I don't know whether you factored that in either, but there's, because we put a lot of expense into our farms and roads and whatever, and we don't want them.
100% agree.
So there's some questions that I have going forward, and then being on the Planning and Zoning Commission, we want to make sure that if you guys are going to do it, it's got to be done right. But I'm kind of in the same situation as what Dennis said. This is getting the cart before the horse.
And I appreciate that, and again, what we're trying to do is conversations just like this, really to understand, 1, concerns, 2, processes, and 3, requirements. So that's the purpose we're here, so I do appreciate even the drain tile questions as well. And that's, as we've worked through this project, how we've had to modify some things and actually easements to address questions just like that.
Okay.
So I do appreciate that.
Thank you.
I will give you one of my contacts as well
Okay.
for further questions.
Okay.
Commissioner Frederick.
Well, and another comment, this to me is all a part of a glaring not being very transparent from the get-go when this project was started and the letters were sent out and all of a sudden people showed up on people's land surveying and doing things that they didn't know what they were doing out there. Now, all this, the whole process, the way this has all been laid out, and if you're no more transparent with the contractors that are going to come in here and bury these pipes, and that whole process, if there's no more transparency in that, and then following up on those contractors, well, you got a disaster, plain and simple. And to me, that's what it's developed into, is a disaster, so.
How frequently, like you addressed the drain tile issue specifically, so do you have a lot of interaction with other underground stuff, whether drain tile, gas, water? Okay, that's a stupid question, but do you guys always zig and zag and avoid everything, or sometimes do you have to relocate some of the other utilities because that's a better deal, or how does that work? Or I guess my question is more, how frequent is that, or how is that like an everyday thing where you're constantly moving other stuff, or how do you approach that?
With that question, I would just start off with, so far there's been over 1,000 route variances on things trying to shift, avoid, do something different. That's part of what we're trying to get an understanding from all counties, all areas, is what's out there and what are the requirements. Likely the answer is going to be is we would work around those. Back to questions just as we had here, it might dictate a different boring depth, might dictate some other requirement for those crossing permits or those approachment permits. So we're trying to understand all the aspects to make that final decision, but likely we would work around the other entities.
And then another question. This stuff is liquid, correct?
It's called a supercritical state that is actually between a liquid and a gas phase, so it's called a dense phase.
Okay. So it's liquid, but the temperature is
about 88 degrees. Pipeline temperature ranges from, when it comes out of the ethanol plant, a little bit warmer, up to, off the top of my head, this number is, I think, 110, 115 degrees, and it gets down to about that 88, 89 degrees, somewhere in that range.
How is it liquid then?
It's compressed at a supercritical state, and it's a phase that's called a supercritical or dense phase, which is it's a phase right between liquid and gas.
Okay.
Because of the pressures and temperatures, and that's why it has to keep that temperature as well.
So the pressure offsets the fact that the temperature's 80-some degrees in it.
Yep, compressing it at and just for reference, the pressures range up to about 2,100 PSI, depending on where you're at. It can get down to 1,800, I believe, to about 2,100 PSI on these. It's high carbon steel, welded seams, very durable, steel piping.
Is there a problem with precipitate on the inside of the pipe with that stuff, because there's just nothing else in the carbon dioxide to fall out of it, so there's none of that?
You got it, pure stream. You know, the metallurgy has been very much worked through on that aspect of it, but really it's a very pure CO2, which really starts off in a different standpoint. Again, going right to the high carbon steel use.
And then just, I'm jumping around here, but stuff's popping in my head. What's the footprint on the ground look like for above ground? You know, I think about the gas pipeline, and they have a pretty substantial, whatever word you want to use, but a pretty substantial piece of infrastructure to recompress the gas and move it. So what do we got here? Anything like that?
Well, what you're talking about is having an easement. You're gonna wind up with an easement over wherever you're going, right?
Correct, 100% correct.
A width of...
50 feet, I believe, is the working easement, or the actual easement with another, I believe 30 working space easement on that. I'll double check those numbers, but in that scenario, removing topsoil out of those areas. And maybe your question was going to what kind of above ground infrastructure pump?
Kinda.
Pump.
Yeah.
Okay. Yes, I believe there's 9 pump stations across the entire length of the 2,000-mile pipeline. The compressors, you know, it really starts at the ethanol plants, with the compressors being part of the ethanol plants. That starts the pressurization of these systems, and it'll be pump stations instead of compressor stations located along the roads. I believe there's 3 in South Dakota. I will double check that.
But there will also be some mainline valves above ground. They still haven't designed it out yet, but typically they're about 20 miles apart. But those are small and nothing like a pump station.
Are the valves for like a bleeder?
Yeah, it's shut off, yeah.
Yeah, shut off. Are you gonna have areas where you have to bleed them at all? Or not necessarily?
Using it for, in case a pipe blows out, you can shut it down. So all the rural fire departments, like in all the small communities, will they all be trained as to how the company's got a plan to train all those individuals in those small rural fire departments as to how to handle these situations when they blow out?
Mr. Commissioner, without a doubt, yes, and part of, I appreciated the emergency manager contact is as the project matures, every single county on the route will be met with, training will be provided from the rural fire departments, emergency managers and others for that very scenario. So they've started at a very small level in Iowa, but really waiting for the maturity of the project to where we got at the beginning of this questions from before we really start that aspect of that in most of the project line. But yes.
Once you receive PUC approval and your permitting is gone through that process, what's your timeline?
Mr. Commissioner, the timeline on this is, again, permitting aside, and that continues down the path. The projected schedule today would be starting construction along the entire route where permissions would be available in March of 2023. The operational schedule is really end of 2024 for the project to have it operational, as we sit today.
Sure.
What was the last date?
End of 2024 to be operational.
Kind of a little bit in line with what Dirk is asking. This product now, this CO2 that's in this pipe, is that considered a commodity or is it a hazardous material?
Mr. Commissioner, the CO2 in the pure definition of itself is not a hazardous material. Going one step further on that, PHMSA regulates the pipeline development and safety and construction and design, and CO2 is regulated under PHMSA under their hazardous waste line, and that's what dictates the construction design inspection of it. So the question on that is, no, it's not hazardous, but it falls under the hazardous pipeline design and construction because CO2 isn't any place else. It is not a commodity at that point.
Any other questions from anyone?
What's the intent of this gas being pumped underground? What in the world is it ever going to be used for?
Mr. Commissioner, great question. So the intent of this project is a couple-fold, and I appreciate you asking this question. So the ethanol plants, when they are producing ethanol, you can really think about it as for every 3 pounds of corn that's brought in, 1 pound of ethanol is made, 1 pound a distiller comes out of it, and 1 pound of CO2 comes out of it. So as they're producing their product, they today have an ethanol score usually in the, I'm going to call it 60 to 70 range for a CI score, carbon index score. And I can use a couple plants as examples down in South Dakota, but the Huron plant, I was at a meeting last week, theirs is a 60 because of how they dry, and they have a little bit less of a footprint. Other ones usually range in that 70 score for carbon index score. This project is based on bringing more longevity to the ethanol plants to where they can get into the low carbon markets to be more feasible for the long run and viability of their products. So that project will bring their carbon index score that they can get into the carbon fuel market from to about a 70 and cut it in half to get it into the 30s just by this project, by capturing that CO2 and getting a long way to answer your question. I apologize for this, but why are we putting it in the ground and does it have any other use? That's the use, is actually to recognize that low carbon fuel market and the 45Q credit through the federal government, which says you have to permanently sequester and secure that. So why are we putting it in there in a place that can't be used? That's part of the federal program to get into the low carbon fuel markets, is to sequester and secure that for the lifetime.
What are they doing with the carbon now?
Carbon today, Mr. Commissioner, the carbon today is being released into the atmosphere. So on a given day, let's say this project, as it sits today, I did say we have about 8.7 million tons signed up today on 31 plants. Just a little more context before I really get into the final answer for you. We have the capacity to go up to 12 million tons per year right off the bat. There's a lot of ethanol plants that have not signed up, exploring options. We believe there's going to be a strong market to continue signing up. So we could take this to 12 million tons fairly quickly. With additional pump stations, we could actually get this up to 15 to 20 million tons if there would be a need down the road for that. So on a given year, even using 12 million tons a year, this would be taking about 1 million tons of carbon that would be going up a month out of the atmosphere and sequestering into the ground, or equivalent to about 2.6 million cars a year.
Are you allowing any factories, like industrial parks and stuff, that are gonna be able to tie into this for possible carbon credits?
Mr. Commissioner, to date, there is, all entities are ethanol plants and one fertilizer plant at this point. I think a couple aspects going forward on that is how does the 45Q credit play a role into their programs, and does it match this one? So there's some, I guess, work to do at that point, but this is really based for the ethanol fertilizer businesses who can look into the low carbon fuel markets and their CI scores.
Just curious, since we're getting into the design parts of it, what's the estimated capacity of the storage structures?
Mr. Commissioner, currently today, I'm going to start on a little bit further on this question. Currently today, we have approximately 110,000 acres signed up for storage options. We will initiate those into easements when it's ready, but options to do that. A storage unit in itself would likely be about a 5x5 area. Again, I just told you we have about 110,000. Our storage capacity is tremendous. The last work by EERC, which is based out of UND, third-party research, says North Dakota has about 200 to 250 billion tons of carbon storage potential in the geology in western North Dakota. So to that question, we have 1,000 to 2,000 years of storage. It's a phenomenal asset up there. And if I can continue just briefly further on that, what we're doing today on the storage side is currently working through the permitting process on the sequestration side as well, to where we're actually drilling stratigraphic test wells down to almost 12,000 feet, pulling the cores out, analyzing all 3 potential injection zones, and using that information with a seismic survey on this to supplement it, to start working towards where would we precisely locate these storage units within this 110,000 plus acre area that we have. We're also starting to install monitoring zones. Our last core, we actually installed monitoring systems in that to start working on pressures, everything that's required by North Dakota State Class 6 well design and permitting structures.
You're gonna want it to be secure.
Without a doubt. And just to follow up on that, North Dakota's geology is really recognized for that, and really the reasons why is the thousands of feet of caprock. And you can think about it as a sandwich. So throughout the 12,000 feet we've looked at, you have thousands of feet of caprock on top, then sandwich areas of, let's just call it sand channels, with bottom 1,000 feet of rock, bottom kind of contained zones, and we have multiple systems in that. We have three very defined systems in our geology, all with the appropriate caprock above and below the storage, potential storage systems as well. So that has been done for quite some time. Probably in our area, we've been working on this as an industry for probably the last 15 years. The oil field has used some of these similar, actually not some of these similars, these same zones in water well production injection over the last 40 to 70 years as well, further west in North Dakota. So these have been proven for injection into, and their capacity to support it.
Dennis?
So this what did you say, 110,000 acres?
Correct.
So, obviously, that's not owned by one individual. Is there a payment then to the individuals as they go along, as you inject into these different areas? Is there a payment to those individuals for sequestering this CO2? So they're gonna get paid to hold this product under their ground?
Mr. Commissioner, without a doubt, the answer is you're correct on that. So right now, we have the option signed up to turn them into leases as the permitting process goes, and they will be getting a payment as the injection occurs on that. And just for your reference, in North Dakota, the state legislative a couple of years ago defined the pore space ownership to the surface owners. So these easements are with the surface owners in that area.
And that includes a payment?
Correct.
So then my next question is, then why is it that you can get an easement on private property, and potentially through eminent domain, and then not pay those individuals that you're crossing with the pipe an annual payment for the use of their ground to have that pipe buried there? The inconvenience, it's gonna cost these farmers twice. It's gonna cost them if they're paying income tax, and then the inconvenience of having the pipe on their property and the potential of a blowout, and then they tell you that the reclamation back to a normal crop growing condition, they say that they can get within 2 or 3 years, they can get back to that same level. I don't believe it. I've seen what Dakota Access has done, and that land is never back to where it was on that easement property. After you get through stirring up the dirt, yeah, you strip off the black dirt, but then you stir it all up and put it back in. I mean, I guess I don't understand why it is or how it is that you can get an easement but not compensate those people on an annual basis for the fact that you've got your pipe across there.
Go ahead.
Mr. Commissioner, appreciate the question as well. I'll answer that from a couple standpoints. So one, I would start with just a difference in just how pipelines have been handled over the course of time is, yes, our intent is to make sure we make fair negotiations, make sure we're in contact with individual landowners, understanding their individual properties and how we're going to do that. Taking the valuation system they're using, we believe that is the best option. With a comparison of if it's a wind farm, a solar panel, or solar farm, disturbances like that are lifetime disturbances where they're taking the land totally out of production, hence why they're getting a royalty-based return on that, versus this is, to your point, and you have, I appreciate the comments you made on that, we believe we can bring that land back to use. If we pay them above market value, we make sure we have the compensation for the multiple growing seasons, and reclamation is, as you pointed out, done differently. We believe that land can be put back to use, and the landowners can continue to use that land unobstructed.
Got a quick question that goes back to what Dennis was talking about. I know from experience, because I've got drain tile in or whatever, and it's probably a 4-year deal to get it back to where it was to begin with. I mean, yeah, you're gonna see improvement every year, but the bigger the pipeline, because I've got main lines, the longer it takes, by a long shot. So, there's gotta be something, I kinda see where Dennis is coming from, that, okay, is it gonna be a 5-year deal you're gonna pay him, is it gonna be a long-term deal? Because that crop, or that ground isn't gonna get back into production right away. And I know this from experience, not necessarily with that, but from the size of my tile lines and whatever, and what I've done with my ground to get it more productive for myself. So, yeah, you've got some good points, but then I'll ask this question: where's all this money gonna come from for you to do it? That's the, kind of the whole deal right here. Where are you gonna get all this money to do all this?
Mr. Commissioner, I would start by addressing that question in a couple different fashions. So first of all, our first and foremost is to understand concerns on individual landowners. Again, I'm going to use the drain tile example. That has been one that was brought up early and wasn't addressed at the early stages, and now has been written back in. So we are trying to get information just like that and incorporate back in. I think a part of what this project differentiates itself on is the local tiebacks back to the communities as well. So I'm going to start at that point. Is we have, I believe, 7 ethanol plants off the top of my head in South Dakota already. So to kind of a landowner concern that could be come up and wasn't addressed in the past from other projects that might not have a direct tie to the communities, our ethanol plants are part of the communities in South Dakota, Iowa, Nebraska, and so forth. And we believe that tie as well is going to say we're different from other projects to make sure the reclamation is done correctly, items are followed up on. I also did bring up the point that we are starting with 3 years paid up front from just reclamation costs, lost productivity yield, paid up front, and I believe it was off the top of my head, I believe it's 100%, 80%, and 60% production, paid up front on day one. But that is also, I believe, a good question to bring up with individual landowners as they're talking to the land agents and so forth, to continue to talk about that point and bring up any concerns on their land. But I do believe the tie to the communities is different than other projects versus not being tied to the community. So where's the money coming from? Today, there's about $1 billion of investor money out there, and we're looking at, this is a $4.5 billion project, and we'll be looking at debt financing the other $3.5 billion at this point. Again, this project has today no revenue coming in, and we won't have any revenues till operation starts. But again, putting things out in front, like drain tile, that we're actually writing that into our easements as a lifetime warranty through Summit on that drain tile as it goes. So again, trying to tie things back to the communities, trying to tie it back to differentiating ourselves as a company to do things differently.
I believe when you introduced yourself, Mr. Volk, you said this would be more of an introductory type meeting, and I appreciate that, but I just want to make sure everyone's aware there is a meeting set up Friday at noon at the Ramcota where a lot of these questions can be asked and probably answered. We're glad to provide you with the contact information today, and appreciate you coming in, and I know you'll have it looks like a lot of questions on Friday that you'll be answering as well. So,
and that's going to be the land department also, and they can answer those questions that you're asking directly.
Sure.
Can I ask one quick question?
Go ahead.
Why is it that Poet is not connecting to this pipeline? I mean, obviously, either they have a market or they're able to pull their points down on the amount of CO2 that's in the product, and I think there are a couple of ethanol plants relatively close to our area that are able to bring those numbers down. Why is it that we have to spend billions of dollars for a few ethanol plants when there are other ways, obviously, that they're taking CO2 out of ethanol?
Mr. Chairman, Commissioner, I'm really not the one educated enough to give you that answer, so I don't want to talk for the ethanol companies or so forth, and I'm just going to say my limited knowledge on the ethanol economic side of it is to make minor changes costs a lot of money for a minor amount of CI scores. And I'm going to use a couple plants just on the drying facilities, getting it down to a 60 instead of a 70. What's been passed on to me is they're very incremental, cost a lot of money to make minimal differences to make that drop. I don't have an answer for Poet. That's a question that they would have to answer. I don't have any insights on that. I apologize.
Anything else by anyone? We want to thank you for coming in and providing the information that you have, and hopefully your meeting on Friday goes well.
Mr. Chairman, thank you very much. I look forward to anybody, commissioners or others who have questions, please reach out to me. I'll leave a couple more cards here as well. But I'll be looking forward to giving you guys updates and asking more questions from us as well, working with you guys in the future. Thank you for your time today.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
There's some maps of the county, the overall project, and some reading material, frequently asked questions on there, and my business card also.
Appreciate it.
Yes, sir.
What's your last name?
Thank you.
All right, next item on our agenda, Julie Johnson, legislative recap. Good morning, Julie. How are you?
Good morning, Mr. Chair, members of the commission. My name is Julie Johnson. I live at Minot Lake, and was privileged to serve as your registered lobbyist on the subject of regional jails and the needs that Brown County has. So dramatically demonstrated and worked with the region to put this issue front and center. I just wanted to give you a quick update on how the legislature came out on this issue. Clearly, there's one more legislative day next Monday, so things could change quickly, but I don't envision that. There were many, multiple conversations in and around the topic of how to take care of the state's correction needs. There was quite a movement in and around juvenile correction needs, and some significant legislative work that happened there in and around Senate Bill 198. That bill did not pass in the very end. There was also significant conversation about the state's prisons themselves. The governor had set aside a significant amount in reserves in her budget address to make some significant investments in the state's prison system. The legislature's appropriations committee got as involved as they could in that issue, although not very deeply, because the state was seeking a new corrections secretary, which just got hired about 2 weeks ago or so, and we've had the chance to meet her. Then, of course, you know that Deadwood, Lawrence County, and Lincoln County brought in regional jail bills as well, or regional building bills, I'll say, because Lincoln's is a little different than ours. And of course, with the help of our legislative delegation, including Representative Perry, who's probably sitting behind me, brought in House Bill 1288. That allowed you to position the issue a little better, and I appreciate you allowing us the latitude to do that. I don't know that we had grand expectations that we would just get an immediate appropriation, but I do like the fact that the legislature is very tuned into these issues right now. At the end of the day, they did two things. One, they passed Senate Bill 144, which creates the Incarceration Construction Fund for the capital construction of such projects. So notice they use very specific vocabulary. Incarceration Construction Fund. So it's not State Corrections Construction Fund, which might translate to the women's prison or the prison in Sioux Falls, but may also translate into regional or local jail needs. What happens with that fund that was created? Expenditures can only be made out of it with a special appropriation, just like when Northern needs a new building, gift dollars or not, they have to go in for a special appropriation. And that it can be used for the capital construction or improvement of incarceration facilities located in South Dakota. No monies shall be appropriated or expended from the fund until such time as a legislative task force provides a report to the legislature regarding incarceration and corrections in South Dakota. So, that teed it up for a legislative summer study. We do believe they will pick this broader topic for the legislature to work on over the course of the legislative interim. They meet next Monday. The committee of the legislature, the LRC's executive board, meets next Monday at 8 o'clock to decide their interim studies. I am told from those that are following this even more closely at the leadership level that they do believe this will be one of maybe only 2 legislative interim studies this summer on how to meet the state's incarceration needs. They probably will consider the juvenile needs somehow in that study as well, since there was a rather significant body of evidence brought to the legislature in and around juvenile needs, and I'm sure that's part of what propels Brown County to this conversation as well. So I just wanted you to be aware of how it ended up. Oh, the other piece, if you were to follow the state's budget process, which I do a little too well, at the bottom line, after all the expenditures and the general appropriations bill, at the bottom of it, you will find, if you get one of those printouts, that there's $70 million set aside for the incarceration construction fund. So they have set aside some dollars if they are able to come to some great agreements during the course of the legislative summer study, and of course that would have to be back at the next legislative session. So I just wanted to touch base with you on that. Thank you for the opportunity to do this work with you. We'll definitely have to do some things over the summer on this, so let me know how we can be of help there. I'll be there next Monday when they have this conversation. Any questions, comments, concerns?
Go ahead, Mike.
Can you just briefly, by the time you got close to the end of the session and so forth, there was a Senate concurrent resolution pressing the issue about a summer study. Can you just recap a little bit some of the floor conversation and vote on that resolution?
Well, I think what really took over that conversation was Senate Bill 144.
Right.
The resolutions really don't have the force and effect of anything. They're just an expression of concern.
Right.
Well, the LRC's executive board heard that. They put this topic on the list that legislators were surveyed about. So I do believe what was happening there is they were like, we have to look at this whole thing. And I think that's where this county needed to be at the very beginning as well. You couldn't do one jail at a time in the way our legislature works.
Yeah, I think it was just a reflection of the heightened awareness during the session that this is a topic that absolutely needs to get more attention.
Well, and these conversations were happening in various venues as well. They were happening in the State Affairs Committee, they were happening in the Appropriations Committee, they were happening in the Judiciary Committee, they were happening in their caucuses as well. And the Lawrence County legislator, Mary Fitzgerald, Representative Mary Fitzgerald, to me, also did a nice job of escalating awareness of other county communities. And she could do it, of course, artfully, since she serves on the Appropriations Committee.
Go ahead, Dennis.
You know, for at least the last 4 or 5 years, there's been an attempt, and I think it originated out of Cottington County, for a capital improvement or capital outlay fund using sales tax, half-penny sales tax, to generate a fund. And I just wondered how that worked for you as a lobbyist when issues of sales tax come up for municipalities, and at the same time lobbying for the counties to have some of that sales tax money. Just wondered how that fits for you as far as lobbying down there when you've got municipalities, chambers of commerce, development corporations, all those folks hanging on to their sales tax money and not, in 4 or 5 years, not having the opportunity to make any progress there whatsoever. I just wondered if you could comment on that.
Well, I stayed out of those issues for your purposes. I did not believe that I was empowered to be involved in those issues this year. My focus was on the jail needs and how to inject Brown County into those conversations. I've been involved in those issues a great many times on behalf of the counties over time. If I ever have to get back into them, you'll know exactly where I stand. Thank you. Other questions, comments, concerns?
Any other questions for Julie? We appreciate your efforts during the legislative session.
Thank you.
Look forward to working with you during the interim, and
Thank you.
hopefully one of those meetings will be held here in Aberdeen.
That's the point.
That's our
We do
goal.
need to have one of them here in Aberdeen, so we'll start the lobbying for that now.
Mhm.
They need to understand the opportunity they have before them.
We'll enjoy a run on Saturday.
Okay, very good.
All right, thank you, Julie.
Thank you.
Thank you, Julie. Representative Perry, did you have anything to add as kind of a recap for the legislature?
Take care. Yep.
Thank you very much, Chairman Sutton and the Brown County Commissioners. It's always good to visit with you guys. Julie Johnson is an excellent person for a lobbyist, and she really knows a lot about a lot of things going on. She'll be with the Chamber of Commerce, I think, next week or the week after, Community Affairs with the legislative update. But I just thought I'd hit on a few things really quick. One of them is retirement recipients for Brown County. 1,380 people received checks from the state through the retirement program, the SDRS, South Dakota Retirement System. 1,380 people are recipients, $28,875,000. So it's a significant number, and it's coming right here to Brown County, and I thought you'd want to know that. We did have a couple of bills that we worked on with ability for counties to tax, and we'd probably be doing a victory dance if we got those all passed, but we are not doing a victory dance on that. But we did get $6.5 million approved for the Richmond Dam, and we got Senate Bill 44 for Link Project at Northern for $29.5 million. We got veto day coming up next week, Monday, and there's only one or two vetoes that I know of at this time that we're going to look at. And then the jails will be the 26th naturally, and the resolution 608 did move this to the point where they're considering it as a summer project. And then April 12th is the Roundsburg program. We're going to get the final report from the committee on the 28th, and then we're going to make our decision on the April 12th, what we're doing, whether it's going to go to the Senate for a trial or whether it's going to be one of those things that quits. And then June 7th is the primary. That's something you guys should put on your calendars. And naturally, November 8th is the election. Right now, you have 4 people running for 4 spots, so you don't have a big election going on. We have 5 running for 2 spots, so we've got a lot of excitement. So join the excitement, be sure to vote. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Carl. Thanks, Carl.
Any questions you have, I'd be happy to answer.
All right. Thanks for coming in, appreciate it. Thanks for your efforts.
Is that program done still?
Says we're connected.
Is it still? We may be,
Thanks for coming, it's good to see you.
I'm getting some reports that nobody can hear us.
You want me to redial it?
If you wouldn't mind giving it a try.
It's on.
Be it easier for just a minute while we redial our phone to make sure we have connectivity.
I'm hoping that works if we just
Usually, it says hang up, so it usually
Yep.
shows disconnected.
Erica emailed us this here, and then I emailed Barry, he said he was gonna use it. You know, there's a point where everything was pixelated on the screen. I don't know if that was what I just emailed. We'll try redialing.
Sure.
You want me to work that again? Yeah.
Be easier for just a minute.
And if it doesn't work, man.
I think we're a little behind schedule, Kathy.
Please enter your access code.
And it wasn't your fault today. Not yet.
Doesn't matter when you're at the end.
I guess it does.
When it got a little going, I gave it a little nudge.
I noticed. Stuff like that, I'm part of the problem though.
One of these days, I'll
To
turn
enable
that.
audio controls, please enter your audio PIN followed by the pound or hash sign. If you do not have a PIN, just press pound or hash.
be back in?
Probably a safe move.
Looks like it. I'll email you when I get back, Kathy.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. All right, next item on the agenda, Mike Scott's free spring cleanup and a variety of
Yep,
other
a
issues.
few other things going on. First of all, free spring cleanup, I guess, that's just right around the corner. As you can see in the handout, the past few years, we've been extremely busy with the spring cleanup events, especially 2020, with over 8,000 vehicles. The city will participate this year, though, with 2 drop sites.
Oh, really?
So that will help alleviate some of the traffic out to our
Where will those spots be?
That'll be at Jensen and Brown County Highway.
Okay, good.
So
Good to have them.
that should help us, you know, keep some of that light traffic from running all the way out to the landfill.
Sure.
So,
Good deal.
So I just need a
motion to waive the fees, right?
I'll move it.
Second.
Motion by Pikert, second by Weiss to waive the tipping fees for the spring cleanup. All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carries.
all right.
Thank you.
Second thing would be to approve the purchase of a couple of containers. The one is a 50-yard can, and obviously these prices have been inflated like over double from what they were even 10 years ago. We use these cans all the time. Last time we bought some was back in, what, '07? So they've been extremely used hard, so I would like to purchase one 50-yard and 2 20s from Olympic Sales out of North Dakota.
Move it. Motion by Pikert. Second by Weiss. All in favor, signify by
Somebody,
saying aye.
was on the system, and I couldn't hear what he was saying.
Is there someone out there with a question?
I can give a shift background.
Yeah.
Are you gonna surplus the ones we have, or
No.
continue to use them, or?
We'll use them as long as we can keep going. Some of them, we just needed more,
Okay.
you know, because of some of the overflow
Increased
and
volumes.
during the fair. And,
Sure.
like I
Okay.
said, we've got some in use, and some have reached their useful life that are pretty well done.
Sure.
So, yep.
Okay.
All right, all in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carries.
Next thing is our scale. We do have that certified every year. Now it's every other year by the state. They check it for accuracy, and that's been fine. We've had one spot on the west end of the scale that's, the concrete has fallen away, given away, so I had Webster Scale out there here last week, just to inspect underneath, you know, and the scale's been in there 30-plus years now, or 30 years, so that's reached its useful life too, but it's not just, it's not just gonna fall apart, you know, but,
Is there a counter on there as to how many times that thing has weighed? I wonder if there's even a way to do that.
well, we can by our traffic counts and
Oh, I suppose,
roughly
yeah.
number of vehicles that come
Can't
over the
even
scale,
imagine.
but,
Been run over a lot of times.
you know, in the last 30 years, millions of times.
Yeah.
So, that's gonna need to be replaced, there'll have to be a spec written, you know, obviously we're over the bid limit. The biggest problem with that is right now is some of the other scale companies cannot get parts for scales, they can't make them. Webster Scale they pretty well put together their own scales, they come in and pour the deck. But their biggest thing is they're tied up here now starting in May through the end of the year.
Sure.
So,
And
like I said, we'll have to get something. I did not budget for scale replacement this year either, so.
Is there any salvage in this unit that's out there? I mean, would a farmer or
They'll pull
anybody pull it out of there and?
Not really. They'll pull the deck off, and, you know, that's pretty much all concrete and steel, and I don't know if there's any salvage to it or not. I don't know how they almost gotta break it apart to remove that deck. You know, the deck must be 8 to 10 inches of concrete, you know, that's 70 feet long. So, I don't know if that can be rolled out of there and reused or not.
That'd be a question for Webster Scale, probably.
If they can.
Is there any salvage there?
And then in the interim, while they're putting this new scale in, we would use a temporary scale.
Sure.
And that's, you don't wanna use that too long, 'cause that's about $9,000 a month, just to rent that portable scale. So, once we get some specs written and get everything dialed in, I'll be back, just so we can be on track, but we're looking at about $100,000 just to replace it.
Sure.
So, that's just more of an FYI right now, so we're gonna get started on that to put something together.
See how the quotes come in.
see where we're at. And then the last thing is the fire station. I know we got an email here last week or whatever it was, but yeah, that's a work in progress. We'll be getting some more information put together on that. Most likely we'll have to put together some sort of bid spec, since we're gonna be, you know, fencing is roughly $50,000-$60,000. You know, we got trees, we've got, grade work and some other things to be done, so the site has been working real well. I guess I haven't had any.
Talking truck out there yet?
No.
Going through a freeze thaw cycle, settling.
So we'll see how things work here now. Dirk helped me get the building foundation out of there, so,
I didn't do that much, really.
Sure you did. I saw you out there the other day.
He had a spade and stuff.
The site cleaned up real good.
The site is
Looks
clean,
good,
it looks good, so we just got some more work to do.
Well, if you've got your boundary pins and all that set, what kind of specs, I mean...
Well, not a lot of spec, really, I guess. I don't know what...
If you get, to me, if it's surveyed...
If there's
and
grade
pin
work,
set, what kind of specs?
gravel work, there really isn't a whole lot of...
I mean, I guess I can't see,
Spec
like,
that
hiring
needs to be
Helms
there.
or somebody to pay them more than what the
Right.
costs of doing all that. I mean, to me, it almost seems like...
Yep, the biggest thing is getting the fence in there and getting some trees planted, I guess.
Is the fence more than $100,000?
Probably 60.
You could call it a
Go.
capital improvement, and you don't have to bid it.
But once you put all those things together,
We got gravel bids, I mean, we can get the
We can
gravel
just go.
from places, yeah.
Sure.
Well, now the auditor's over there waiting to tell me I'm wrong, but.
When in doubt, bid it out.
I'm not in doubt that often, though.
Is there gonna be a separate exit on the north side, in and out?
Whatever you guys want, don't ask me, I'll do it.
I guess,
I get-
we're good with the approach where it is now.
I think Bob...
Didn't Bob want one up there somewhere?
Yeah, I think Dirk and Bob are working on that.
There's one for his, but
Yeah.
not for this.
The problem is if there's that drainage ditch. on the
Yeah.
north
On the
side.
north side, yeah.
So I think, I don't know how it's working out now, but the plan was to come in through that approach in between the site and the fire station, then loop around and come out the same way.
Right, yep. So, yeah, trees, fence.
The dumpster
gravel.
site in Groton's awesome, that's all I know, so.
Well, I guess I would, you know, have conversations with Bob Jacobs as far as, you know, he wants a row of trees or two. I think part of the agreement was that there'd be a row or two of trees on the north side of the ditch
And the west side.
and on the west side, and then work with the soil conservation.
Oh, I know, yep.
Yeah, get them guys involved, because they are the ones that should come out and plant the trees.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah,
Yep.
spade them in.
Yep, we'll work with them. That's what we did at the landfill, so.
Very good.
That's about all I've got.
All right. I don't think you need any more motions at this point.
Nope.
so We'll be back when you get some
I'll be
quotes.
back.
All right. Thank you, Mike.
All right, Dirk, you're up.
Thanks, Mike. Thanks for putting us back on schedule.
Yeah.
Hold the wind
You're
down.
late, Dirk. Again.
I was even here early.
Next item on the agenda, Dirk Rogers, right away and department update.
Morning.
Morning, Dirk.
The right of way is a continuation of that one that you guys caught them in up there on Road 11. It's, working their way down. Down, County 10 from the that same intersection at Westport, or down here. And they're coming all the way down to, I think it's Fairgrounds Road, actually.
There.
But that's what it covers, they're just replacing the poles and, you know, updating the lines and stuff. I'm always amazed, and I'm sure there's a reason, and cost and other things and geography, but, you know, out where my mom lived, they spent the last X number of years putting everything underground, eliminating all the poles, and then at these other, and they're doing some of that around here too, obviously, but then all of a sudden you have one of these where they, and I don't know if it's because it's by the river or what the deal is, I'm sure there's a reason, but Anyway, I don't have a problem with it.
Who's the application?
Oh, I'm sorry, it's a continuation from Northwestern Public Service for the overhead up there coming out of there. So
Motion by Feldheim, second by Weiss to approve the, right-of-way occupancy. All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carries.
Yeah, it depends on what the load is.
Yep, oh, that's what say, that application you showed me, is that public, I mean, can I use that as a reference for another
Yeah.
thing?
Yeah.
Because when they have comments about the challenges, I'm going to the short course when I'm done here.
Yep.
And I know that the rural infrastructure program's gonna come up. And some counties, or whether it's county, township, whomever, will say, well, the township doesn't have the ability to do A, B, and C, you know, they
You don't have the talent.
and Mike gave me this application from a township in Spink County.
Excuse me, yeah.
Well, one of them that applied to James River, and it is one of the most comprehensive applications that was done by their township clerk. You know, not everybody's gonna have that same thing, but I'm gonna take
She's
that.
available for hire.
Take that as an example that, yeah, that the township
Get the
can
guy's
do it.
name and pass it on.
No,
Yeah.
it's a lady, and she's incredible.
It's pretty awesome.
Get her telephone number and pass it on.
I tried to get her to move
townships.
here, I said, we'll put her to work.
Maybe she can be a consultant or something.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Sorry it took so long to get it to you, but yeah. it's-
No, that's cool. That's the right-of-way thing's the only thing I have. I had a couple that came in Saturday morning, but I'll bring them next week. Outside of that, we are, of course, the load limits are on, and that is, still a mystery for a lot of people, but we're getting it figured out. And, let's see, we're crushing. You can go out and see that. It's going phenomenally well, I guess, when things are dry, and Ken always liked to do it when it was cold out, because everything's a little more brittle and comes apart better. But I think the trade-off, when you have a dry year and the temperatures and everything's just, it's the fastest we've ever gone through the material, but we have a pretty substantial pile, so.
They'll have the moisture helping to bind it together,
Right.
it's fracturing.
Now, we had, there was a question asked about, dropping the load limits. Surprise that, last Tuesday, then all of a sudden we come out of here and we have load limits on. How come there wasn't, like a week or 5 days notice that, hey, we're gonna put the load limits on down the line and put them on? I mean, yeah, it'd be a nice, public relations deal, but it's not like people don't know that the load limits are gonna go on.
You can monitor the forecast and pretty well figure out what we're gonna do.
Yeah, I mean, there's some of that, and we've tried to be consistent relative to the overnight lows. If I could get anybody to look at the overnight lows, when the overnight lows have a couple days in a row where it doesn't freeze, or it doesn't get, you know, then it's probably just about time. To answer your question, because I had the exact same conversation with Doug here, a couple days ago, and remember, I'm a Dome City kid, and I don't understand why everybody has to do all their hauling in the last 35 minutes before we put load limits on. But having said that, I'm trying to give them the benefit of the doubt. We don't, I mean, here's the trade-off, okay? If you want more warning, we're gonna pick a day 2 weeks out, and come hell or high water, that's the day. Now, you might end up with a freeze the previous week, it might be a cold snap, and then all of a sudden everybody's like, well, hey, the county's put on load limits and it's cold out, I could be hauling still. Is it okay if I haul in the morning? Can I just haul in the morning till the sun cuts up? And
That's when your cell phone breaks.
So, that's the trade-off. If we wanna go, I have no problem with doing that, but what's gonna end up happening is we're gonna pick a day 2 weeks out, so we can get a billboard and a flashing sign and everything else in the newspaper to tell them that load limits are coming up, because they're a new thing every year that we do that, I get it. But if we do that, then we're gonna pick a day 2 weeks out, and no matter what, that's the day. What I've tried to do, because apparently everybody needs every last stinking day to haul, I've tried to hold off as long as we were comfortable with it. And so to answer your question, that's kinda why that happens. That's why I come in and go maybe a week ahead and tell you guys, hey, in the next week, we're probably gonna put them on. But if the general public wants us to just pick a day, we can do that too. It's what the state does, but
We had somebody at the township meeting make the comment, it's not your fault, but, you know, the fact that it takes 2 days to get something published in the paper now, it should take an extra day before we put them on.
Right. Well, it's not like they don't have a road to get their grain hauled. They may have to drive an extra 6, 7, 8 miles.
Yep.
They still have access to get there.
Mhm. Yep.
This will pass, it'll be all gone next week.
I know. So, and I'm not, actually, the thing that, I become more amazed every year, because
You sound surprised.
it's just like, oh, I never thought that since they put that bean plant over there, that all the roads from the farms to the beans plant ought to be open. You know?
They will be. Be patient. Give us a month.
So, yeah, and, the other part of that is I'm trying to walk a line there, 'cause I don't wanna end up where you guys get so sick of it, where, fine, we're not gonna have load limits, and then we're like Grant County over there, who doesn't have them and tried putting them on one year, and can you imagine how that went, if you never had load limits, and then one year you tried to put them on?
So we need to keep them on.
So, no, and I don't get that feeling from you at all, but,
Here's some good news for you. Water flow's coming.
Well, and I see they're gonna no longer have a Monday paper delivery, so when that goes to a no more Wednesday paper delivery, it might be a week before they hear.
It's online.
I think they're trying to gear everybody to get more information off the internet, so if we post it on our website
Yeah.
as soon as we put them on, and just tell people, check the internet, if you're in question, it'll tell you when they go on.
yeah. I mean, in February, what is it, February 15th, I think, is the actual date in statute that you put them on, you know? And since we're talking about it, there's no such thing as a permit. Now, I don't know what to do with this. So I'm hoping that this doesn't ever become a problem here. But some counties, the garbage trucks that are overweight, empty, don't get permits. And it's just kinda,
It's understood.
you know, I hope it's up to the carrier enforcement, it's up to whomever, and whatever. And so I've always walked through that scenario, where I say, no, we're not gonna give the garbage trucks permits. Well, that's gonna be about a 12-second later phone call to any number of you folks, and then you're gonna call me and go, what the hell are you doing? And I'm gonna say that, geez, you know, there's no such thing as an overweight permit for spring load limits. Well, now we're gonna have an environmental problem, and the end result is we're gonna have to open up every road that a garbage truck runs on. I mean, I'm being a little facetious, but that's the process I go through. So I really struggle with the permits. We don't write that many. There's for the garbage trucks and hog confinements that were here pre-2000, basically. And I just got in an argument with a guy the other day, and I said, I'll write you a permit, but there's no guarantee that if carrier enforcement pulls you over and they actually drag you into court, that permit's gonna do anything for you. So, I don't know where that'll go. Probably not the best topic to just be talking about, but, that's sort of a reality that we battle with a little bit. But anyway, outside of a few things, it's going good. Road 5's coming apart as expected, going out to the dam. But, you know, that was kind of expected to some extent. And so we got a little bit of daily checking on 5 and 3, and we're gravelled up there a little bit, going into the dam and all that. But outside of that stuff, I think the project's going okay. I don't know if you heard anything different from those people up there.
Just that it's breaking up really bad.
Yeah.
That's what I've heard. And I didn't tell them that, well, if it breaks up bad enough, we'll just go ahead and grind it. I
Yeah.
didn't tell them that,
Chicken.
because I wanted to live.
You got a few more months, and you're just gonna be another pissed off taxpayer, as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it.
You guys call me the next few days if you need anything, but I'll be out to the conference. I'll be back Thursday.
All right, thanks,
All right?
sir.
Have a great day.
Yes, sir. You as well.
Ask any questions.
All right, brings us to the end of our scheduled items. Kathy, you're up.
We have the general meeting minutes of March 15th.
Move. Motion by Weiss. Second by Gage. All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carries.
Claims.
Not my opinion, you have it. Move.
Motion by Weiss.
Second.
Second by Feldheim. All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carries.
Leases.
Move. Motion by Feldheim.
Second.
Second by Gage. All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carries.
Plats.
Move. Second.
Motion by Fikert, second by Weiss. All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carries.
set hearing and authorize advertising for a rezone ordinance.
Move. Second.
Motion by Gage, second by Weiss. All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carries.
Abatements.
Move. Second.
Motion by Feldheim, second by Weiss. All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carries.
Sheriff report for February 2022.
Move.
Motion by Weiss,
Second.
second by Gage. All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carries.
HR report.
Move.
Motion by Weiss,
Second.
second by Feldheim. All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carries. We'll open it up to public comment. Is there anything else to come before the Brown County Commission today? Anyone here? The room emptied out. Anything else to come before the commission? Hearing none, we entertain a motion to adjourn.
Move. Second.
Motion by Fikert, second by Weiss to adjourn. All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carries. We are adjourned.